important webinar as we will be reviewing the results from our 15th annual year in review survey. I can't believe it's been 15 years. The largest annual review of our biometric industry, and thanks to all who participated.
15 years, Jan, do you hear?
And a special thanks to our sponsor for LADA for their continuing support. My name is Peter O'Neill, and I am the president of Fine Biometrics and Mobile ID World. And what a year for biometrics. And you're in for a real treat today. We have brought together some of our industry's most influential leaders to discuss the highlights from 2017 and what 2018 will hold for our industry. And with so much going on, be sure to stay on top of all the breaking news by visiting Fine Biometrics and our sister site, Mobile ID World. Now in our 16th year, we cover the market like no one else with in-depth articles, insights, the largest yearly review of our industry, featured theme months, newsletters, interviews with leaders in the space, international speaking engagements, and of course, our now famous webinar series. Next up for us is the Mobile World Congress Show in Barcelona in 3 weeks. And if any attendees today are going, please reach out to me and we can meet up there. We have a lot to cover today, so I'm going to jump right in. Please note, to ask a question, just type it into the dialog box in the Go to Control panel on the right side of your screens. And please do this at any time. Don't wait until the end, as this will give us an opportunity to manage your questions, and we'll do our best to answer as many as possible at the end. And there will be a number, I'm sure, given the information we're about to cover today. This webinar will last about 40 minutes in total and will be recorded and available at finebiometrics.com, as are the complete survey results. They'll be available on our site as well. Well, this is our 40th webinar presentation, and it is a very special one for many reasons. But most importantly, because we have a very important guest. John Mears, VP Tech Fellow, Homeland Security Solutions, LADA Corporation. You see, back in 2010, John was the very first guest for our very first webinar, and something he said back then has been used by me in every single webinar since, in all 40 of them. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you are joining us from today. I just love
around the world,
because it so accurately reflects the global nature of our industry. And indeed, we do have attendees from every corner of the globe with us today. Welcome to our international guests. And last time John was with us, he was with Lockheed Martin Information Systems.
Oh, gee, they're a bunch of dummies, huh?
Which since then has merged with LADA, a successor of SAIC.
Oh, really?
This all occurred on August 16th, 2016.
Oh, this is really high-level shit, dude.
Now completely merged, LADA's company has a turnover.
You think what they're talking about here?
US $10 billion.
Do you have a clue?
It has 32,000 employees worldwide. With significant operations in both the UK and Australia, the company is the largest information technology service provider to the US government.
Wow.
The company is also one of the most prominent providers of biometric systems in the world, with deliveries of such very significant technology as the FBI's Combined DNA Index System, or CODIS, the original FBI Integrated Automated Fingerprint Identification System, or IAFIS, the FBI Next Generation Identification System, or NGI, and the U.S. DoD Automated Biometric Identification System, or ABIS. I am so pleased to introduce one of our industry's most respected thought leaders, John Mears.
Well, thank you, Peter. Boy, I was going to say good morning, good afternoon, good evening myself, but you stole that one from me. I'd like to say thank you, though, Peter, for inviting me, and thank you to LADA for providing the sponsorship to enable today's discussion. As well, thank you to all of you who took the survey, because the wisdom you've been able to impart informs and propels the discussion we're having today. In short, I'd say the biometrics industry had a notable 2017, driving the conversation about biometric technology from revolution to evolution. Let's examine the salient points of this evolution from the survey results using graphics for the selected questions. You can see the graphic on your screen.
Wow!
Financial services is the most popular area of application for the second year in a row, which is not very surprising considering the sheer number of deployments in this space. What is notable is how prominent the other category is, indicating the industry is exploding with potential as biometric technologies become more available and mainstream, finding their ways into many niches. Facial recognition is the most exciting modality to you by far, followed by multimodality. This is a dramatic shift from last year in which both fingerprint and multimodal biometrics proved to be much more popular than facial recognition. Much of this excitement could be attributed to Apple's introduction of Face ID on the iPhone 10 or X. But it's also important to consider that facial recognition has seen deployment in a number of public safety applications, is increasingly used in mobile ID verification technologies, and is a key point in discussions about the future of artificial intelligence. Furthermore, the change in rating of fingerprints could be related to that modality's well-accepted presence in consumer technology. A plurality of respondents thought that biometrics would replace passwords as soon as 2020. Only 2 years from now, I'd note. I'm personally skeptical of this belief, and I think the most likely answer is that biometrics will become one of several factors which could include passwords, supporting the multimodality answer to the previous question. Authenticating on a smartphone's lock screen is still the #1 daily biometric interaction point from most respondents.
And John, can I just interject to something here? With this slide, it's interesting to see what the second, third, and fourth answers were here. 2 of them related to financial, logging into a mobile banking app or authorize a mobile payment. And I think we'll start to see voice used a lot more as we interact with our smartphones and our smart homes,
you hear that?
Personal robots, and our autonomous vehicles moving forward.
That's right. Alexa, next slide.
The FBI guys say it doesn't exist.
Most people think that there are still major advances ahead for consumer biometrics, and I argue that this is true in other applications of biometrics, perhaps for different reasons. Educating the public about biometrics is a major concern for the industry's future, according to the vast majority of our respondents. Furthermore, if you look at question 15, this was question 10. Question 15 indicates the industry believes that cooperation through industry consortia and alliances is helpful in addressing industry challenges such as education. Organizations like the International Biometrics and Identity Association, or IBIA, the Biometrics Institute, and Find Biometrics itself are helping in this regard. A little over 50% of our respondents think that artificial intelligence will make speech and face recognition biometrics integral to everyday life.
Speech, huh?
And then, in the interest of time, and since you can see the detailed survey results online, I'll summarize a couple of points from the rest of the 21 questions. The vast majority of respondents are pro-biometric traveler screening, pro-biometric access control, and believe biometrics are effective at defending against terrorism. Over 90% of respondents agree that digital and physical privacy is a fundamental right, and that the biometrics industry needs to deal effectively with the subject, or privacy concerns will continue to be a concern for the industry. As we can see from these results, progress in our industry is solid. The results show optimism, though most people believe that there are still major advances to be made and challenges to be overcome if the industry is to grow to full potential. And speaking of full potential, our panelists today are also working in diverse fields to actualize advancements in identity management. We have a balanced panel consisting of 2 representatives from industry and 2 representatives from government.
Oh boy,
first we
where
have
do you see that?
John Schneider from Qualcomm. John is the Qualcomm Senior Technology Director, though you may also remember him as a former president and CTO of Ultrascan, which was acquired by Qualcomm. For those of you who don't remember, Ultrascan pioneered ultrasonic fingerprint capture devices, including through-the-glass applications, which are an important innovation in mobile devices now being offered by Qualcomm.
Really?
Qualcomm inventions are the foundational technologies upon which others build, particularly in the very important and growing mobility sector. From 5G LTE to artificial intelligence to Internet of Things to automotive and extended reality applications, Qualcomm is inventing technologies that are driving growth in our market segments. We also have Arun Murray,
Gene, this is the end of them.
Biometrics Technology Engine, U.S. Department of Homeland Security Science and Technology Director.
Oh, gee, that's a fool, right?
S&T. In this position, Arun oversees a series of biometric technology rallies to support industry innovation and advanced technologies that support DHS and Homeland Security enterprise operations. The first rally to be held at Maryland Test Facility will be in March and challenges industry to provide high-throughput face or iris technology systems. Arun previously directed the Apex Air Entry-Exit Reengineering Project, also housed in the Maryland Test Facility. As a part of his work for science and technology, Arun looks for the most advanced components and solutions that can best facilitate the DHS mission in the near term.
Do you know what this does to them with my voice analysis?
Paul Hunter, who is the Chief of Biometric Strategy for U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services, what we call USCIS. While Paul works for USCIS, he's an important leader in biometric technology for all of the DHS components, and indeed coordinates across other departments like DoD and FBI, as well as other countries that use USCIS capabilities and identification as a service.
How did I get lined up to receive this? That's
we all know about USCIS's use of fingerprints and faces in the provision of immigration services.
You know.
But Paul is also promoting the capture of irises, voices, and DNA for other mission needs.
See?
Voice verification can facilitate remote transactions, and DNA can verify familial relationships for training migration purposes. Both Paul and Arun are leaders in identification technology for advancing and improving government services. And with those introductions, let's go to the panel with questions. Peter?
Well, thank you very much, John, for that high-level overview, and welcome to all of our panelists. First question to our panelists. Before we dive deeper into the results, I'd like to go around the panel and just get a snapshot of everyone's past year. How was 2017 in biometrics from your perspective? And John Snyder, can I ask you to start off on this one for us?
It's a hell of a video to put up, isn't it?
Absolutely, Peter, and it's truly a pleasure to be part of this webinar today.
Look at these people, aren't they?
2017 as one of our most exciting and breakout years
people at the very crux of the trip, aren't they?
When you look at the mobility and handset vendors, they're taking serious interest in integrating the biometric technology into a variety of applications, some of which John had touched upon, and many of which aren't even listed on the survey form. So we're seeing very interesting new applications being considered all the time.
Everything you hear these guys talk about,
what is different from my perspective is
how is
that consumer handset vendors are truly focused on biometric performance metrics. That shows me a great sign of intent, that it's a serious intent to integrate biometrics to make it part of mainstream life in our everyday, whether it's unlocking a phone or
referring to these organizations.
So they're truly taking time to understand biometric performance metrics and how they can properly integrate it into their solutions. The use cases are very novel. We have a very unique thing with mobile handsets with a variety of sensors on them that's really exciting, driving all kinds of new biometric technologies, well beyond fingerprint, well beyond facial recognition. So that's going to be something to watch.
Wow, listen to that one, huh?
And finally, I think I'm also seeing a convergence of consumer and large-scale ID applications. I believe that ultimately we're going to see this as biometric technology becomes ubiquitous. We will see the consumer applications start to converge with more large-scale identification applications to really make biometrics a fully integrated solution across all aspects of life. So 2017, from my perspective, was truly an exciting breakout year for biometric technology.
Well, so thanks very much, John. Arun, can we get your perspective, please?
Sure, absolutely. First of all, thanks for having me. So 2017 was a very busy year for us. A lot of things happened. A lot of things were kind of continuing to develop. One of the things is with the continued maturity and improvement in a number of biometric technologies, we've seen a significant change in how these technologies can be applied to support different use cases. So, for example, a lot of our work, DHS is one of the largest users of biometrics in the world.
Yep.
And what has happened, though, in the last couple of years is it's not just about border security applications and screening. Because of the improvements in technology, because of the enhanced not only security but also facilitation, ease of use, improvements in algorithms, we're finding that technology can be applied to potentially new use cases, to new missions where it wasn't previously technically viable or cost-effective before. So one of the things that we've been doing in particular to try to accommodate this is standing up the biometric technology engine. The intent there is to help additional users within the DHS or Homeland Security enterprise understand how these get smarter on these technologies faster, so that we can start helping people figure out how to adopt and deploy the technologies very quickly. And the reason for that is, again, we're at this point, the technology has grown so much where we're largely limited by our imagination. We probably, anytime our person decisions or anything needs to be done based on an identity, biometrics could now credibly play a role, and that may not have been possible before, where we were relying on these slower, less accurate technologies or more expensive technologies. So as this continues to evolve and grow, we look at how the biometric technology engine can support and keep up the pace and help people understand how the new technologies can be applied to maybe even decades-old missions and support them more effectively.
Well, thanks very much, Arun. Paul, can we get your take, please?
Yeah, I just want to, first of all, let me just say, Peter, John Mears, thanks for the invite. I know a lot of work goes in the background to get these panels operational, and as panelists, we just show up and everything's working great. Just want to say thank you for the background there. So for 2017, from my perspective, a banner year, really, and it started January of last year. There was the establishment, the department of what we call the ABC Working Group, which means it's an acronym. We're good at acronyms in the U.S. Age of Biometric Collection Working Group, which was comprised of the operational components. I'm talking about CBP, ICE, USCIS, and DHS headquarters. It was led by DHS policy, and it was to discuss the problem that's occurring on the southwest border. This is about unaccompanied alien children and accompanied alien children just appearing at the border. It's about 60,000 a year show up, and we don't know what's happening to these kids. So this group was formed to see what we can do to help combat that problem.
Nobody's talked about this, have they, Gino?
So that working group started in January, and what it actually led to was a policy memo by the then Secretary Kelly that directed the components to look at multimodalities, collect one, collect all.
I like listening to real intelligent people, Jane.
But more importantly, to examine the age rate that collect that. In general,
real intelligence for once.
It's different wherever you are in DHS, but in general, the age of biometric collection is 14 to 79, or 14 to 75, depends where you are.
I missed this.
This memo directed to where it's operationally technically feasible to do so is to remove age restrictions. So at USCIS, I'm going to talk about USCIS, we took that very seriously, and actually was a major impetus for us to examine our own operations. So we did that. We formed internally working groups, and what we are actually currently working on, sometimes I've been told I can't talk about this, but we are looking at implementing a notice of proposed rulemaking. What that means is it gives us the authority to change the age range, but also gives us the authority to collect additional modalities. We're looking at a number of different technologies. Now, fingerprints will always be there. They're foundational element for criminality in the United States, but there are other modalities that we could use to improve our own operations. We are looking to lower the age limit down to 5 for certain populations, not entire, it's not writ large, but certainly looking at refugees and asylum populations to lower that age to combat that problem on the southwest border. But in terms of modalities, we collect a facial recognition quality photograph, but we actually don't use it in any operations. I think our colleagues at CBP have used it more often than we do. We're looking at that in terms of a mobile device to do one-to-one verification, and this is for the employment verification world. We're looking at voice. Voice now, Arun has graciously taken up that challenge and is going to help us operationalize that. but the use case of the voice is, there's actually two use cases. We get about 50,000 phone calls a day at USCIS, and it's a tedious process, you know, where you got to verify the identity on the other side on the phone. So you ask, you know, first name, last name, date of birth, what's your address, what's your mother's maiden name, and a bunch of knowledge-based question and answers to verify your identity. Well, voice could really improve that situation. It takes about 40 seconds to verify an identity on the phone before we can actually divulge.
Did you hear that?
With voices, it depends
right
how you
now,
want to, there's two ways to operationalize that, but I won't go into those details. But if you can just have a voice print that you can verify, yes, you are you, Paul Hunter, how can I help?
Perjury.
You know, and it'll be much faster. The other use case for voice is in our electronic world. We are moving away from paper forms and going to electronic online, and we could take a voice print, and every time you log in, we could harden your account, so whenever you have a question on your account, you can use that voice print. That's in the early stages. I think facial recognition has more promise. We're also looking at iris. As you know, we collect face, finger, and a signature. But we're looking at actually incorporating iris into our operations, and there's a couple of reasons for that. It's another modality that our operational components like ICE or CDP or TSA could use. But more importantly, the use case there is the central enterprise repository for biometrics is what we call IDENT. It's led by the Office of Biometric and Identity Management in NPPD, but that database of biometrics is increasing in terms of iris images, and we could use that for cases where we can't actually get a fingerprint.
Well, Paul, you certainly have a lot going on. It's a multimodality. We're going to get into a little bit longer, but I'm going to move on to John Mears now and ask him if he can just give us a quick update from his perspective. How has the year been for you, John?
Okay, Peter, I'll try and be crisp on this.
That was a chief biometrics
the 3 points I'd like to make, one of which you already kind of started to make. We have an almost 3-decade history of providing large-scale biometric systems in the national interest, and we continued that strong performance this last year, for which we're quite proud. Programs like NGI and the DoD ABIS as well. 2 more points. I'd say that we have to look at some of the progress that's happening across the world, and I would note that UK IDENT is on a path to be replaced by the Home Office Biometric System, or HOBS, and so the Home Office is making significant strides over 2017 and into 2018 in modernizing that program as well for the UK, and that's very important for them. And then the other one that excites me a lot is the progress that has been made. Arun talked about entry-exit re-engineering. The progress that CBP has been making in trials of entry and exit using biometrics, starting in 2017 and moving into 2018, and that's providing a lot of excitement. And so I'm always glad to see these organizations, our customers, making such significant progress.
Wonderful, thank you very much. And what I'd like to do now is for the first year ever, since introducing the modality questions to our year in review survey, facial recognition has been voted the most exciting, usurping longtime incumbent fingerprint. So forever, fingerprint has been the main one.
13%.
What's driving this change? Arun, can I ask you to start off on this one, please?
Yeah, no, I'm happy to comment on this. I think what you're seeing is a natural, convergence point for a couple of different things. First of all, what really makes this work is, first of all, a lot of things. First of all, we're very used to
got it all right here.
As humans, we recognize people based on our faces typically. Yes, like right now on the phone, maybe a few of you recognize my voice, but in the vast majority of scenarios, we are looking at face or some aspect of face. It's part of everything we do. You know, it might be on my credit card, it might be on my badge, it might be on my passport, but the point is, it's always there. It's never been formally used for automated facial recognition in many applications, but now we're getting to the point where the images that we've taken historically can be processed. So, first of all, it's an intuitive thing. It's the next step from human-based, facial recognition, if you will.
Right.
You're also seeing that the cameras being used for facial recognition, they're everywhere. The cameras are ubiquitous, and in addition to that, the capabilities and the costs have gotten so impressive over the last couple of years, largely because they've been incorporated into consumer electronics like handsets or tablets.
How about brain pattern, Jim?
So you're not only getting more cameras, which results in more imagery and more data, but also significantly improved performance and cost benefits there too. So when you take the addition, our natural inclination to use face, the wide availability of capabilities to collect faces with non-specialized cameras, with commodity and very low-cost cameras, and then now propelled by what we're seeing with deep learning and machine learning, and applying that to facial recognition algorithms to get them to be far more competitive than they once were. This is why facial recognition is largely has gotten a lot of the attention. It's gotten a lot of hype in previous years, but now we're at the point where this is actually fitting a lot of different use cases, because not only do we have data today and lots of cameras today, we have images that people have collected over the years, and we have these really powerful algorithms that have gotten much better in the last few years.
I guess the one thing I don't want to throw is,
cold water all over everything, but there's still kind of an open question about how much unique information.
How are they going to counter these guys?
Really isn't a face.
How?
Because as you know, you can match faces, and you might get false.
Who are they to them, right?
There's this one example I threw out there. I think it's the Google Arts and Culture.
These guys I'm dealing with?
App, which allows you to take a selfie and find your look-alike, if you will.
No, my guy's trying to jack them. They're nobody.
So people do.
Oh, okay, we're on the same page. They're nobody, right?
As we look into this in the future,
in fact, Gene, we have 2 FBI guys they use. Penalty of Perjury.
And it's not just one reason. It's for a lot of different reasons.
This is no question, is it?
Thank you very much, Arun. Paul, can I get your take on this, please?
Yeah, I'll be real quick on this. I think ease and convenience of use is driving that. Not every business use case requires a fingerprint, and I think from a DHS perspective, you look at risk and you look at threat. Once you've established an identity, does it make sense to fingerprint everybody every single time? In the case of entry-exit, there, the risk of letting a bad guy out of the country is far less than letting one in. So, fingerprint come in and face going out. I think that's what's driving it, and I think that, as Arun's already said, the price point is dropping dramatically and accuracy is increasing, so why not collect multimodal while you have a person in front of you?
Yeah, absolutely. John Mears, what is your take, please?
Well, we haven't talked about it so far, but as I'm thinking about the flu epidemic here, one of the things that people have got to be concerned about when they talk about high volume immigration and travel through ports of entry and exit is hygiene. And so the fact that face is a standoff biometric can be captured at a distance certainly contributes to that, notwithstanding the promise of fingerprint on the fly, those types of things. But I think that for a lot of the reasons Arun said already, people are comfortable with it, and I just add the hygiene factor since we're also hyper aware of the flu outbreak here.
And John Snyder?
Yeah, just echoing almost what everyone else says. Unlike legacy systems where maybe an integrator or a customer would drive the best performing biometric for a given application, what we're really seeing now, what I'm seeing now is, how the impact of the user experience coupled with the system accuracy will drive the selection of biometrics. We're seeing how users in a consumer mobile-based application have a very strong say in what biometric technology they feel comfortable with. I caution everyone, every biometric technology out there has pros and cons. Will the future be facial? Will it be fingerprint? Or will it be a to-be-determined biometric modality? I think only time will tell, because there's always challenges when introducing new biometric technology, but the excitement of what the mobile consumer application space has brought to biometrics, we're starting to see some of these technologies really be tested in a very high volume, large scale.
Interstate Commerce.
It's exciting.
Well, and John, I think that leads well into my next question, which has to do with multimodality, because it continues to grow in popularity, and the survey results suggest that that is the case. That this particular area has grown quite a bit over the past couple of years. And what factors are driving the excitement around multimodal solutions? And how is this affecting the industry in general? And Paul, can I ask you to start on this one for us, please?
I think that the one thing I didn't mention is that you know, if you have multimodal, you can accommodate. We have a lot of cultural sensitivities, right? I mean, a lot of people don't like to be touched and anything like that. So, as I mentioned before, once you have somebody in front of you and you're enrolling, and you take those additional modalities, you can be more culturally sensitive.
What happened?
Oh, we lost you there for a second, so I'm going to ask John Mears if you could take over this, and can we get your update while Paul reconnects?
Sure. I think that one of the basic principles that has been true in security technology for some time is this idea of multi-factor, that while one factor by itself may not be as assured, 2 or 3 factors provides you much higher levels of assurance. And the fact that, and somebody mentioned earlier, the sensors have gotten so cheap, if you can conveniently collect more than one, why not? Now, the only thing I would add to that as well is that since people are in contact with their devices for long, extended periods of time, particularly their mobile devices, you can't pry them from people's hands, the opportunity to observe behaviors as one of the biometric factors that can be added in just really enhances that assurance of a multi-factor, multimodal type of authentication and identification.
It's a very important point, John. We're seeing a lot of growth in behavioral biometrics. And Paul, are you back?
Yeah, did I drop off?
Yeah, it's okay.
I don't know where I dropped off, but for some reason my connectivity seems to be dropping here. But anyway, cultural sensitivities, I think that's what's helping drive multimodalities, is a contributing factor, I should say.
Wonderful. And John Snyder, what's your take on the multimodality growth? Why is this happening so rapidly right now?
Yeah, I really think, Peter, there's 3 reasons. It's 2 are very related. Performance-driven, user experience and accuracy. As John Mears points out, once we start, looking at multiple measurements, multiple biometric modalities for an individual, we can achieve performance standards never before thought possible. And from a user experience point of view, we've all heard of the corner cases, the fringe cases where some individuals don't use a particular biometric technology as easy as others. These failure to acquire biometric samples almost can be driven to zero now once you have different types of biometric measurements, just making it much easier for the user. Ultimately, what I believe this is going to lead to is a continuous authentication scenario where the user will be able to be continuously identified throughout the possession of their mobile device, if you will, making the entire identification process a much more secured process. More security means new applications will be thought of based on new performance levels.
Oh my God!
At Fine Biometrics, John, we're in total agreement with that outlook. And Arun, can I get your take on the multimodality growth and popularity?
Sure. I think what we're seeing over time is that this stuff is going to get faster and easier to use, just as John mentioned a moment ago. This almost starts to become, this is all largely driven by user experience. Where I see this is happening is, I forgot, there's a great quote, and I can't remember it right now, but it's along the lines of how when technology gets sufficiently advanced, it starts to become transparent, right? And I think multimodal biometrics will become transparent. We won't even really consciously think about the fact that the way we're holding our phone, or that when we do a selfie or when we speak into it, that it can also help to verify our identity. And I think it's not only going to happen with biometrics. I think it'll happen with multi-factor authentication as well. When you start thinking about what you have and what you know, When you start asking knowledge-based questions on your device or as part of an interaction, or the fact that you even have your mobile device with you as part of an interaction, these things will all start to seamlessly integrate to help provide that continuous authentication that you are you.
Thank you very much, Arun. Next question. The majority of respondents agree that the password will be replaced by biometrics by 2022, or even earlier, and some even claim that it's already happened. Is this overly optimistic? When do you expect the password to be replaced by biometrics? And what sort of has to happen for all this to really take hold? And John Mears, can I ask you to start, please?
Of course. So I think there are two major considerations here. And one of them I think we can cite just happened. I just saw the announcement just before we came online today, and that was MasterCard's announcement that said that their issuers would be required to incorporate biometrics as a factor for authentication to credit card transactions and make it available by April of 2019.
That's big news, John. That just landed today, eh?
It did. It just landed today. And so some people would say that that is a significant citation in the death of passwords. Although I note that they say that they're going to continue the PIN and other authentication techniques in parallel. So they didn't say they were going to cut that off. But at any rate, and they may go to truly a multimodal where you've got biometric PIN or something of that nature. But it wasn't clear in the announcement. And
they just announced a big one from MasterCard today, right now.
But I think it's a very significant announcement, as you say.
2019, MasterCard announced
so that's
today.
One item. On the other hand, I expressed in my remarks earlier some skepticism about this. And the reason I say that is that I keep an encrypted file with all of my ID passwords, and I've started counting them. I've enumerated them all so I can keep track of them. I have 109 unique ID password combinations in my encrypted file. And when I look at the applications that use this technique, they're not all credit card applications. Some of them are with my financial services company, some are with healthcare. Others are company applications of various types. And it's hard for me to believe that all of these companies and all of these apps will be upgraded to use multi-factor or multimodal or biometric authentication in the next couple of years. So I think there's good progress to cite and very, very great excitement with the MasterCard announcement today, but I think it needs to be tempered with some caution on the optimism.
Well, John, how I wish I had your ability to do that. I'm a yellow sticky pad guy myself, and have them all over my wall. So I'm the opposite end of that. John Snyder, can I get your take on this one, please?
Sure, Peter. So I think password replacement will occur when a given biometric solution, whether it's a single modality or a multimodality solution, can pass the test of time. The test of time is both with respect to user experience as well as system accuracy. And I don't think we're far off from that. I believe that this, though, is going to involve rigorous testing of fielded biometrics to validate the performance claims, and I think these performance claims are not far off by any stretch of the imagination. Do I think 2020 is the year? I think that's probably a little optimistic, but do I believe it's going to happen? Absolutely. I just believe that we're going to see some new biometric developments take place first. These will get deployed. These will be validated that, in fact, they are a very secure, safe, non-intrusive way to establish one's identity, and that's when I think we'll see passwords become.
Actual discussion, huh, Jano?
Thanks, Arun. Your take?
Dude.
I think what we're going to see here is it's not going to be something that happens. I mean, to be fair, with password, you're right. It is absolutely being replaced by biometrics in some limited applications. And usually in those conditions, it's really because of the ease of use aspect of it. When we start talking about like more complicated operations, I don't know the passwords will go away tomorrow. I think we're going to continue to see multi-factor authentication for some use cases, depending on the risk tolerance and the consequences of misidentification. But for others, you know, biometrics might be perfectly good to take away the password. I mean, I personally use it to log into some of my devices. You know, it's really convenient. So I think it's really just going to be context dependent. In some places, it's already happened. It'll continue to happen. But I think for many other applications, you'll continue to have multi-factor authentication for at least the foreseeable future.
Thanks, Arun. Paul? Paul's having some connection problems. I'd like to add here, you know, from an ROI perspective, a return on investment, you know, the cost of call centers and replacing passwords and people who, in the online shopping area, people leaving a purchase because they just can't deal with their password. So that end user frustration, I think, is a main driver here as well. And I'd like to move along to the next question here, and that is, this year we saw a rising prominence of artificial intelligence, neural networks, and machine learning. Our survey respondents voted in agreement that the rise of AI will make contactless biometrics such as voice and face integral to everyday life. Do you agree with this assessment? And what are some of the benefits of these new technologies? And John Snyder, can I ask you to start off on this? You've already mentioned AI a number of times.
Yeah, absolutely, Peter. So I strongly agree that the role of machine learning, deep learning networks, artificial intelligence is going to have a very strong impact on biometrics, because we are seeing with the added applications out there, the biometric technologies, there is not a single clear-cut winner today. We're seeing fingerprint and face start to really take the lead, but I believe once we introduce behavioral and all the host of other biometric technologies that become enabled in a mobile environment with the vast amount of sensors we have on a phone, all of a sudden the analysis of how these biometric technologies can play with each other is an ideal problem set for machine learning. So we will now have a vast amount of data, both traditional biometric data and non-traditional biometric data, that I believe will offer us an opportunity to analyze that in a machine learning environment through deep learning networks and come up with performance standards never before thought possible to really, as we lead toward that continuous authentication platform. So.
It certainly is a very exciting time, John, when you look at the rise, and obviously machine learning's been around for a long time, but the growth in the last few years has been quite outstanding. Paul, I understand you're back. Can I get your take on this question, please?
Yes, I'm back. I apologize for that. I do not understand what's going on with my network. So can you repeat the question?
Yeah, it's the artificial intelligence. You know, what ways can we see the biometric industry benefiting from, you know, neural networks, machine learning, the rise in AI? Because we're seeing it everywhere. You know, at every conference that I go to now, AI is taking over a major section of the discussion. And how will that benefit the biometric industry?
Well, certainly it'll help improve accuracy and speed of use. I think that those would be two areas I would see. Other than that, I can't really predict. It's so overwhelming what artificial intelligence, the progression of artificial intelligence, what will have on the biometric industry right now. But definitely going to keep a close eye on that.
Wonderful. Arun, can I get your take, please?
Yeah, the way I kind of see it is biometrics will be data feeds into machine learning and deep learning and artificial intelligence and those types of things. It'll be one of many signals that they use to help to make these determinations about, you know, does this look like it's the right person, or does it seem like it's the right person, and should should access or whatever be granted to that individual. So I think there's a very complementary aspect here where biometrics will. The performance, the yes-no match, the thresholds, the algorithms will get better through the continued improvement in these algorithms and the techniques that we apply. But then it'll also get really good in just this whole concept of identity and combining, again, these different factors of bat biometrics as well as, you know, the the other factors that we typically associate with identity management.
Thanks, Arun. And John Mears.
So I agree with the enthusiasm for this, and I don't mean to be the naysayer, but I'm going to mention a couple of concerns about the growth of the industry versus, say, the traditional algorithmic approaches to biometrics. The machine learning, the training of deep neural nets depends on access to large labeled data sets. That is, you need to know ground truth on these to train your neural net. So the people generally that have the best data will get the best results. So having access to these large data sets, perhaps even at the national level, can provide a strategic advantage. The next thing to worry about, I think, as an industry is the number of data science graduates that we're producing that can step up to these kinds of challenges. The proliferation of these types of applications, while the growth is strong, it could be limited by the number of people that have data science types of degrees to advance the industry. And so we need to work on education and education outreach as an industry to encourage the development of programs at universities where they've got such types of skills. So I'll just add those couple of things, caveats.
Thank you very much, John. Now we're running a little long in our webinar today, but because this is such an important one, we're getting a number of questions from the attendees, and I'm going to now just sort of move to that. A number of questions around privacy, education. So let me sort of put these into one. You mentioned that education was very important. And how does privacy fit into that as the biometric industry moves forward? Just some general comments around that. Who would like to take this, please?
If I might, well, I've got a good connection. Let me take a stab at this. Education is key. We actually developed a strategic framework just a couple of years ago, and we said that communication and education is going to be critical. I don't know if you've noticed this, but you see a high level of presence from DHS to educate about what we're doing with biometrics and how it's going to fit into our business processes, and I think that is really critical to addressing that. And in terms of privacy, real quick, build it in at the beginning. Get those privacy folks in the room before you start building any systems is the key.
Paul, we couldn't agree more. Baked-in privacy, I think, is the way some people talk about that. Would anybody else care to comment on the privacy education question?
So this is John Mears. I'll make one comment on educating because it's something I've been speaking about at some conferences recently as we engage in privacy panels. Privacy, for instance, in the U.S. at the federal level, is legislated by about 29 federal laws. And so they all talk about the basic concept, which is the right to be left alone, that nobody's going to abuse the data to which they have the privilege of accessing about you personally. So that's very important. But that's different from anonymity. And when you're traveling in an airport, for example, we're all used to having to show ID to get on a plane. They want to verify. There have been at least one famous situation recently where a person got on the wrong plane. We've seen cases like that before. So nobody would argue that being able to identify a person is an invasion of privacy. But we sometimes confuse the difference between privacy and anonymity. Where there is no right to anonymity, it's not the same as an invasion of privacy. So I think that kind of education needs to be promulgated.
It's interesting, John. When we started these year in review things, it was always to do with education wasn't really one of the topics that was talked about. And in the last 5 years, it's really come up to be one of the critical areas. So thank you for sharing that. And I'm going to get to one other question. It has to do with liveness detection. So we had a number of questions, and basically what steps are being taken in this area. It is a critical one. And maybe John Snyder, can I ask you to start us off on that one from the attendees, please?
Sure, it is critical. It's hugely critical, and that as I see it, all of these technologies, just like biometric technologies, as they mature over time, we've seen huge advances in liveness technology over time, and I think they will become a naturally integrated solution with biometric technology that, again, you won't know it's there in the background working, but the whole additional security that anti-spoofing / liveness technologies provide to biometric systems, I think will just become part and parcel of an entire biometric solution. So do I see their future? Yes, I do. And the technology is making, there's a couple of very strong leaders in this industry, and their technology is very encouraging. So.
Great. Anybody else like to add a comment to that?
Yeah, sorry, this is Arun. So, yeah, I think this is going to continue to be a thing that we're actively watching and working to kind of continuously improve. I fully expect that as biometrics, I mean, I make this point sometimes, in many cases, biometrics are not secrets, right? Our photos are widely available. Every one of us on this panel right now are photos in this PowerPoint. We leave our fingerprints on many things that we touch. So liveness is going to be an important component of making sure that whether or not we should be able to trust the sensor that's providing the image, and whether or not we want to provide to authenticate the user who's accessing that device. I fully expect that there's going to be incentives for people to try to continuously beat these systems, but there's also going to be a lot of effort on the other end to make sure that we can continue to trust these systems, and that might involve better algorithms to try to detect features or aspects of the biometric signal to see whether or not it appears to be authentic. But we'll also see more and more sensors being built into these devices anyway. And this will get back to, if we're trusting the phone, we may not trust just the face photo. We may look at other things. We may look at, the voice, or we may look at if there's a fingerprint sensor there. We may even just look at geographically, where the person is sending the data from. Is it from the place where they usually try to interact with our systems? I think there's going to be additional data that comes into play. I think there's going to be additional sensors and smarts built into these devices, and it's going to be something that continues to evolve. This is going to be a bit of an arms race for a while, where just like in cybersecurity, it's not like you're all of a sudden completely secure. Both sides become more sophisticated in trying to make sure that certain threats aren't realized.
Well, Arun, thank you very much, and I think that will be our last comment. I want to thank again our sponsor, Leidos, for their continuing support, and especially to John Mears and our expert panel today. This concludes our webinar today. Thank you very much.
Wow.
Thank you, Peter.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Well, I gotta say, that was as good as it gets, and LADA, public defenders, Superior Court judges, former FBI guys, thank you so much for crossing state lines and making it a federal issue in my case. That's right. Interstate Commerce, you fools. You should have got them from this own state. Now you're in deep trouble. Bye.